I built my tech consulting company from nothing. At 35 years old, I owned a beautiful home and a business worth millions. When I met Stephanie at that charity event 2 years ago, I thought I had found someone who valued me, not my bank account. 6 months ago, I proposed and she said yes. Everything was perfect until she handed me a prenup demanding my house and half my business. Before I tell you how I discovered my fiancé's true colors, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had someone try to take advantage of your success. I grew up in a middle-class family in Chicago. My parents worked hard to provide for me and my sister, but their marriage fell apart when I was 12. The divorce was ugly, especially when it came to money. I watched them fight over every asset, turning what was once love into bitter resentment. That experience shaped my view on finances and relationships forever. By 16, I was working after school at a local electronics store. I saved every dollar possible for college, determined to create financial security for myself. Those early years taught me the value of hard work and independence. I graduated with a business degree at 22, carrying minimal student debt thanks to my savings and scholarships. After graduation, I worked for a technology firm for 4 years, learning everything I could about the industry. At 26, I took the biggest risk of my life and started my own tech consulting company. The first 2 years were brutal. I worked 16-hour days, sometimes sleeping on a cot in my tiny office. But gradually, clients started coming, and the business grew. By 30, I had saved enough to buy my dream house. It was not a mansion, but a comfortable 3-bedroom home with a view of the lake. I remember the day I got the keys, walking through each room, overwhelmed with pride. This house represented every late night, every missed weekend, every sacrifice I had made. It was the physical embodiment of my journey. 10 years after starting my company, it was valued at $4.5 million. I had 30 dedicated employees and clients across the country. I had built something meaningful through determination and grit. Though financially successful, I remained grounded. I still drove a sensible car, lived within my means, and valued experiences over possessions. It was at a fundraiser for the local children's hospital where I met Stephanie. She stood across the room in a simple black dress, laughing with genuine warmth at something someone said. When our eyes met, she smiled in a way that made the crowded room feel suddenly intimate. Stephanie worked in marketing for luxury brands. She was smart, articulate, and seemed genuinely interested in my journey from startup founder to successful business owner. Unlike other women I had dated, she asked thoughtful questions about my work challenges rather than just the financial rewards. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. We talked for hours about our childhoods, career aspirations, and life philosophies. Stephanie told me about growing up in Connecticut, her college years studying marketing, and her passion for building brand identities. I was impressed by her ambition and independence. As our relationship developed, we discovered shared interests. We both loved hiking, cooking, elaborate meals together, and traveling to places off the beaten path. 6 months into dating, I took her to meet my parents, who immediately embraced her. 2 months later, I met her family. They were clearly wealthy, with a beautiful home in an exclusive neighborhood, but they seemed down to earth and welcoming. After 18 months together, I knew Stephanie was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I planned an elaborate proposal during a weekend trip to Napa Valley. We took a private sunset tour of a vineyard ending at a hilltop overlooking the valley. When I dropped to one knee and opened the ring box, her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. Within minutes of putting the ring on her finger, she was calling her parents and friends, excitedly sharing the news. Seeing her so happy cemented my belief that I had made the right choice. A month later, Stephanie moved into my house. Initially, she seemed happy with our home, adding small decorative touches that made it feel like ours rather than just mine. We began planning the wedding together, agreeing on a ceremony with 100 guests at a local botanical garden. Looking back, I should have noticed the subtle changes in Stephanie's behavior after our engagement. She began making comments about my house being cozy, but perhaps too small for our future. The botanical garden venue she had initially loved became a bit too simple for what she envisioned. Her taste in wedding details grew increasingly expensive. The reasonably priced wedding dress she had liked became inadequate compared to a designer gown costing 5 times more. The photographer I found was suddenly not prestigious enough. Our honeymoon plans shifted from a meaningful trip to Greece to a status symbol vacation at an exclusive resort in the Maldives. One afternoon, Stephanie suggested I trade in my practical sedan for something more befitting a successful entrepreneur. When I explained that I preferred spending money on experiences rather than status symbols, she seemed genuinely perplexed. "But you work so hard, Craig. You deserve to show the world what you have achieved," she argued. More concerning was how she began introducing me to her wealthy friends. At dinner parties with these new acquaintances, I noticed how they subtly looked down on my business, suggesting it was quaint compared to their corporate empires. Rather than defending me, Stephanie sometimes joined in making comments about my potential for growth, as though my current success was merely a starting point. Our first serious argument came when discussing the wedding budget. What had started as a reasonable $50,000 event had ballooned to nearly twice that amount. "This is our special day," Stephanie insisted when I questioned the escalating costs. "We only get married once, and I want it to be perfect." Something felt off, but I dismissed my concerns as pre-wedding jitters. I loved Stephanie and wanted her to be happy, so I reluctantly agreed to the increased budget, telling myself it was a one-time expense for a lifetime of happiness. 6 weeks before our wedding, Stephanie casually mentioned a prenuptial agreement during breakfast. She brought it up between sips of coffee as though discussing weekend plans rather than a legal document that would shape our financial future. "My parents think we should have a prenup," she said, scrolling through her phone. "Nothing major, just protection for both of us." I was not fundamentally opposed to the idea. Having witnessed my parents' divorce, I understood the value of clear financial boundaries. I assumed the agreement would protect both our assets and outline fair terms if our marriage ended. "That makes sense," I replied. "I will have my lawyer look it over once we have a draft." 3 days later, Stephanie's lawyer sent over the document. As I read through the terms, my coffee grew cold beside me. According to the proposed agreement, if we divorced, Stephanie would receive 50% of my business, a company she had no hand in building. She also wanted ownership of my house, which I had purchased years before meeting her. Most shocking was a lifestyle maintenance clause requiring me to support her at the standard of living she would have as my wife, regardless of the reason for our divorce. There was even language about future inheritance from my parents. My lawyer Jackson called after reviewing the document. "Craig, this is one of the most aggressive prenups I have ever seen," he said gravely. "She is essentially claiming half your premarital assets and guaranteeing herself a wealthy lifestyle whether the marriage lasts or not." That evening I approached Stephanie as she lounged on our couch, scrolling through wedding inspiration photos. I sat beside her, choosing my words carefully. I read the prenup draft I began. Some of the terms seem unusual, especially asking for half my business and the house I owned before we met. Stephanie put down her phone and turned to me with a practiced smile. "That is standard protection, Craig. Nothing unusual. Actually, it is very unusual. Most prenups protect premarital assets, not transfer them to the other person." Her expression hardened. "Well, when we are married, I will be contributing to your success. I deserve security." Contributing, how, I asked, genuinely confused. "The business is already established. My connections, my social standing, my support," she replied, as if stating the obvious. "Plus, I am giving up career advancement to be your wife." I was stunned. Stephanie had never mentioned sacrificing her career. In fact, she had recently been promoted and often spoke about her professional goals. "I thought we were partners," I said. "Partners do not demand ownership of things the other person built before they even met." Stephanie stood up, her face flushing with anger. "So you do not trust me. After everything you think I am just after your money. That is not what I said. I am suggesting fair terms that protect both of us." "Fair," she scoffed. "You know what is not fair. Being engaged to someone who values money over love." The argument escalated quickly. She called me selfish, untrusting, and accused me of never truly loving her. When I remained firm about not giving away half my life's work, she stormed out saying she would stay with her friend Jennifer until I came to my senses. That night, lying alone in bed, I replayed our entire relationship in my mind. Had there been warning signs I missed? Moments where her true character peeked through the facade I barely slept, torn between love and growing suspicion. The next morning, I called my best friend Michael, who had known me since college, and had watched my business grow from an idea to a thriving company. "I hate to say this," Michael said after I explained the situation, "but I never fully trusted her. Remember when she accidentally saw your financial statements and asked all those detailed questions about company valuation?" I did remember. 6 months into our relationship, Stephanie had found papers on my desk showing the company's growth projections. She had asked surprisingly specific questions about potential investors and exit strategies. At the time, I found her interest flattering. Now it felt calculated. With mounting unease, I began reviewing past conversations about money. There was the time she had casually asked about my retirement accounts, the dinner where she probed about my parents' estate plans, the weekend she spent researching prenuptial agreement laws for a friend. I found her wedding planning notebook in our shared office. Flipping through it, my heart sank. Between venue ideas and florist contacts were notes like "Mrs. Future Millionaire" and calculations of my approximate net worth. One page even had a timeline sketched out with milestones like house renovation and investment account access. Though painful to admit, I needed to learn the truth before proceeding with the marriage. This was not just about money, but about trust and authenticity, the foundation of any lasting relationship. After 2 days of internal struggle, I made a decision that felt both necessary and heartbreaking. I contacted Thomas, a private investigator recommended by my lawyer. I felt uncomfortable investigating the woman I planned to marry, but the alternative, walking blindly into what might be a financially motivated trap, seemed worse. "I need to know who I am really marrying," I told Thomas during our initial meeting. "If my suspicions are wrong, no one needs to know about this. If they are right, you might be saving me from disaster." Thomas was professional and thorough. A week later, he presented me with a comprehensive report that confirmed my worst fears and revealed things I had never suspected. Stephanie had dated 3 wealthy men in the 5 years before meeting me. Each relationship followed a similar pattern, lasting just long enough to discuss marriage before ending abruptly. Thomas found social media posts where Stephanie and Jennifer joked about landing a rich guy and securing the bag. More disturbing were records showing Stephanie had researched my net worth before our first date. She had joined the charity board just 2 months before the fundraiser, where we met specifically because it attracted successful business owners. What I had believed was a chance encounter had been carefully orchestrated. The financial investigation revealed Stephanie carried significant debt despite her apparent luxury lifestyle. She had maxed out credit cards, a personal loan with a high interest rate, and was behind on payments for her expensive car. Her marketing job paid well, but not nearly enough to sustain her spending habits. The final revelation was the most painful. During a weekend when Stephanie claimed to be on a business trip to New York, Thomas had photographic evidence of her meeting her ex-boyfriend Bradford at a hotel in Chicago. The timestamps showed this happened just 3 months after our engagement. As I sat in my office reviewing the evidence, I felt physically ill. Our entire relationship, which I had cherished as genuine and loving, appeared to be an elaborate con. The woman I thought I knew, the future I had envisioned, crumbled before my eyes. Stephanie returned home after 3 days away, acting as though our argument had been a minor disagreement. She kissed me casually and began chatting about wedding details as if nothing had happened. "I spoke with the florist today," she said cheerfully, "and my lawyer is waiting for your response on the prenup." I nodded non-committally, buying time while processing everything I had learned. That evening, she brought up the prenuptial agreement again, this time with additional requirements. "I have been thinking about our future children," she said sweetly. "The agreement should include educational trusts funded immediately after marriage." When I did not immediately agree, her demeanor changed. "Craig, I need these assurances before we get married. If you cannot provide them, perhaps we should reconsider the wedding." It was an ultimatum thinly veiled as concern for our future. When I remained hesitant, she began to cry, accusing me of not trusting her and making her feel insecure. She reminded me of all the wedding arrangements, the guests who had made travel plans, how disappointed our families would be. Just sign the agreement, she pleaded. If you really love me, you will do this one thing to make me feel secure. I pretended to consider it, needing time to protect myself legally before confronting her. Let me talk to my lawyer again, I said. Maybe we can find a compromise. This seemed to satisfy her temporarily. She immediately called her parents, telling them I was being more reasonable. As she spoke with them in the next room, I overheard her saying, "Do not worry, he will come around. Dad can talk some sense into him." Later that evening, I heard Stephanie on the phone with Jennifer while I worked in my home office. Not intending to eavesdrop, I was about to make my presence known when I heard my name. "Craig is being difficult about the prenup," Stephanie was saying, her voice low but clear. "But once we are married, I will have everything I need. The business alone is worth millions, not counting the house and investments." Jennifer said something I could not hear, and Stephanie laughed. "No, he has no idea. He actually thinks I am in love with him." That moment crystallized everything. Any lingering doubt or hope that Thomas's findings were somehow mistaken vanished. The woman I had planned to spend my life with saw me as nothing more than a financial opportunity. I slipped away silently and called Jackson. "I need to protect myself," I told him, "and I need to do it quietly." Over the next week, I executed a careful plan while maintaining a facade of normalcy with Stephanie. Jackson helped me secure my business with additional legal protections and documentation. I transferred important documents to a secure location and installed security cameras throughout the house, ensuring any confrontation would be recorded legally. I documented all evidence of Stephanie's true intentions, creating a comprehensive file that included Thomas's findings, recordings of her conversations about my assets, and communications with her lawyer, revealing the true nature of the prenuptial demands. The most difficult part was maintaining a convincing act while my world was imploding. I attended wedding planning meetings, nodded along to conversations about our future, and even accompanied Stephanie to dinner with her parents. All while knowing that our relationship was built on deception. "You seem distracted lately," Stephanie commented one evening. "Is everything okay with the business?" "Just finalizing some contracts," I replied, forcing a smile. "Nothing to worry about." In truth, I was preparing for the most difficult conversation of my life, one that would end our engagement and expose the painful reality of our relationship. After 10 days of preparation, I was ready to confront Stephanie. I invited her to dinner at home, telling her I wanted to discuss the prenuptial agreement in a relaxed setting. I prepared her favorite meal and set the dining room table with candles and wine, creating an atmosphere that would put her at ease. Before she arrived, I ensured the security cameras were functioning and placed my phone on the table to legally record our conversation. My stomach was in knots, but I was determined to remain calm and controlled. Stephanie arrived looking pleased, assuming my dinner invitation meant capitulation to her demands. She kissed me on the cheek and accepted a glass of wine, settling into her chair with a satisfied smile. "This is lovely," she said, looking around at the candlelit setting. "What is the special occasion?" I wanted to create a nice environment for an important conversation, I replied evenly. "I have been doing a lot of thinking about us, our future, and the prenuptial agreement." Her eyes lit up. "And before I share my thoughts, I have a question." I took a slow breath. "Stephanie, why did you really agree to marry me?" She looked momentarily confused, then composed her features into an expression of affection. "Because I love you, of course." "Why would you ask that?" "Are you sure it is not because of my business, my house, or my financial status?" Her expression flickered, but she recovered quickly. "That is an awful accusation, Craig. How could you think that?" Without responding, I placed a folder on the table and opened it, revealing printed copies of Thomas's findings. "I know about Bradford," I said quietly. "I know about the weekend in Chicago, 3 months after our engagement." Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" "I also know about your research into my net worth before we met, your conversations with Jennifer about landing a rich guy and your credit card debt." I kept my voice steady as I laid out photograph after photograph, document after document. Stephanie's initial denials gave way to anger as she realized the extent of my investigation. "You had me followed. You invaded my privacy. I protected myself. I corrected. Something I should have done much sooner. Her strategy shifted quickly from denial to justification. Fine. So what if I did research you? Any smart woman would. Do you know how hard it is for women in this world? I deserve security. Security is one thing. Demanding half of what I built before I even knew you is something else entirely. Her facade crumbled completely then. The warm, loving woman I thought I knew transformed before my eyes into someone unrecognizable, her features contorted with rage and contempt. You have no idea what it is like, she hissed, working twice as hard for half as much. Men like you have everything handed to you. I was momentarily stunned by this characterization. Handed to me. I built my company from nothing. I worked 16-hour days for years. I earned everything I have, and I wasted 2 years with you, she shot back. 2 years I could have spent with someone who actually appreciates what I bring to the table. And what exactly do you bring, Stephanie, besides expectations of living off my hard work? Her laugh was cold and unfamiliar. Connections. Status. Having a beautiful, sophisticated wife makes you look successful. You think those clients at the Westlake dinner were impressed by your business acumen? No. They were impressed that someone like me would be with someone like you. Each word struck like a physical blow, confirming that every moment of our relationship had been transactional in her mind. What I had treasured as love had been for her simply an investment expected to yield financial returns. The engagement is over, I said firmly. I would like you to move your things out of my house by the end of the week. Stephanie's expression shifted again, panic replacing anger as she realized her plan was collapsing. Craig, wait, I did not mean that. I am just upset because of how you approach this. We can work through this. There is nothing to work through. You have made your intentions perfectly clear. Please, she said, reaching for my hand across the table. I do love you. Those things I said, I did not mean them. Which things did you not mean? The conversations with Jennifer about my money, the research into my net worth, the meetups with your ex while wearing my engagement ring. She began to cry tears I now recognized as tactical rather than emotional. Everyone makes mistakes. Please do not throw away what we have over one bad moment. This is not one bad moment, I replied. This is who you are, and it is not someone I want to spend my life with. When she realized her tears were ineffective, Stephanie's demeanor changed again. She threatened to tell everyone I had been emotionally abusive. She claimed she would sue me for breach of promise. She even suggested she would contact my clients with fabricated stories of business impropriety. I simply slid another document across the table, a cease and desist letter prepared by Jackson. All of this is recorded, I reminded her, pointing to my phone and the security cameras. Any false claims will result in legal action. Finally understanding that her position was untenable, Stephanie gathered her purse and stood. At the door, she turned back with a venomous glare. You will regret this, she said. No woman will put up with your paranoia and distrust. I would rather be alone than with someone who only sees me as a bank account, I replied calmly. After she left, I sat in the silent house feeling a complex mixture of pain, relief, and resolve. The future I had imagined was gone, but so was a relationship built on deception. Though painful, the truth had set me free. The following days were logistically challenging. I had to contact the venue caterer and all invited guests to cancel the wedding. Most people were understanding, though some questioned what had gone wrong in what had appeared to be a perfect relationship. Stephanie attempted to control the narrative, telling mutual friends that I had developed cold feet and irrational fears. However, when several close friends asked for my side of the story, I shared selected evidence of her deception. Their shock and subsequent support confirmed I had made the right decision. To my surprise, Stephanie's parents reached out to apologize. We had no idea about her behavior, her father said during an uncomfortable phone call. We raised her better than this. The engagement ring, which had belonged to my grandmother, was returned through her lawyer. I arranged for all wedding gifts to be sent back with notes of thanks and explanation. The financial deposits lost on venue and catering seemed a small price to pay compared to what I had nearly walked into. Stephanie made one attempt at legal intimidation, having her lawyer send a letter claiming emotional distress and demanding compensation. My attorney responded with our complete file of evidence, including records of her infidelity and financial deception. No further legal communications followed. As a precaution, I changed the locks and security system at my home and implemented additional protections at my business. Though Stephanie had never had access to company accounts or sensitive information, I was taking no chances with someone who had proved to be calculating and vindictive. The cancellation of a wedding 8 weeks before the ceremony created a void in my life. Calendar dates previously filled with appointments and plans suddenly stood empty. The house once filled with Stephanie's constant presence felt eerily quiet. Initially, I experienced profound grief, not for the loss of Stephanie herself, but for the loss of who I thought she was. The future I had imagined, the family I had hoped to build, the partnership I believed in, all vanished in an instant. Sleep became elusive, my mind constantly replaying moments from our relationship, reinterpreting them through the lens of new understanding. Casual questions about my finances that had seemed like interest now revealed themselves as reconnaissance. Loving gestures I had cherished were recast as calculated moves in a long con. Michael proved himself a true friend during this period. He checked in daily, sometimes just sitting with me in silence when words felt inadequate. He never said "I told you so," though he had expressed reservations about Stephanie from the beginning. "You will get through this," he assured me, "and you will be stronger for it." 3 weeks after the confrontation, I began therapy sessions with Dr. Rivera, a psychologist specializing in relationship trauma. In our first session, I admitted my deepest fear. "What if I cannot trust my own judgment again, doctor?" Rivera helped me understand that Stephanie's deception was not a reflection of my discernment, but of her character. "Manipulative people are skilled at presenting false versions of themselves," she explained. "Your willingness to see the best in others is not a weakness." Through weekly sessions, I began to process the experience, examining the red flags I had missed and the intuitions I had ignored. I learned to trust my instincts while remaining open to genuine connection, a delicate balance that would serve me well moving forward. Work became a healthy distraction. I poured energy into new projects at my company, mentoring junior staff and exploring potential expansion opportunities. The business continued to thrive, perhaps because I approached decisions with newfound clarity and caution. Gradually, I rediscovered personal interests that had taken a back seat during my relationship with Stephanie. I resumed weekend hiking trips, joined a cooking class, and reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my engagement. My parents provided unwavering support, reminding me of the resilience I had demonstrated throughout my life. "You built a business from scratch," my father said. "You can certainly rebuild your personal life." 4 months after the wedding cancellation, I began volunteering at the Children's Hospital where Stephanie and I had first met. The irony was not lost on me, but helping children facing serious health challenges provided valuable perspective. My heartbreak seemed small compared to their courage. Working with these children and their families reminded me of what truly matters in life. Not wealth or status, but connection, compassion, and authenticity. Each Saturday spent at the hospital restored a piece of my faith in humanity that Stephanie had damaged. 1 year after what would have been our wedding day, I could look back on the experience with gratitude rather than bitterness. Had I not discovered Stephanie's true nature before marriage, the consequences would have been devastating both emotionally and financially. The lessons I learned shaped my approach to all relationships, personal and professional. I became more attuned to authenticity, valuing actions over words and substance over appearance. I established stronger boundaries while remaining open to genuine connection. Through volunteer work, I met people whose sincerity stood in stark contrast to Stephanie's calculated charm. Among them was Laura, a pediatric nurse whose dedication to her young patients radiated in every interaction. Unlike the instant attraction I had felt with Stephanie, my connection with Laura built slowly, founded on shared values and mutual respect. 6 months after meeting, when Laura and I began dating, I approached the relationship with healthy caution and clear communication. I was transparent about my past experience, and she appreciated my honesty. Our relationship developed naturally, without the whirlwind intensity or strategic milestones that characterized my time with Stephanie. The experience with Stephanie also enabled me to help a colleague facing a similar situation. When James confided his concerns about his girlfriend's sudden interest in his financial affairs, I recognized the pattern. I shared my story and encouraged him to trust his instincts. He later thanked me for helping him avoid a potentially destructive relationship. Looking back on that difficult chapter of my life, I feel profound gratitude for the bullet dodged. Though painful, the experience taught me to value substance over appearance, authenticity over charm, and inner peace over external validation. It reinforced what truly matters in relationships: mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care for each other's well-being. The gold digger who nearly became my wife inadvertently gave me a precious gift: the wisdom to recognize true connection when it appears, and the courage to walk away when something feels wrong. That knowledge is worth far more than any asset she attempted to claim. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that seemed painful in the moment but saved you from greater heartache down the road? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more true stories of life lessons learned the hard way. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that trusting their instincts could save them from future pain. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you truly need.